Hello and welcome to the podcast. This is Ron's Amazing Stories. We have stories that should thrill you a little and chill you a little.
It's amazing.
What you'll hear are adventures sent in by you guys, classic stories from the pulp mags, and episodes from the golden age of radio. We have special segments like Ghost Stories with Sylvia.
That's amazing.
And These Are Your Stories. So settle in for the next hour and enjoy the show. One more thing. You just might want to prepare yourself to be taken away from today.
Another 5-minute mystery.
This 5-minute mystery is being brought to you by Sandro Botticelli.
Ron, the artist from the 14th century?
The very one.
May I ask why?
He is the subject of our FMM today.
Was he robbed, murdered, or perhaps guilty of a crime?
Perhaps. Let's hear the story.
Police headquarters, Inspector Craig. What? What did you say? We'll be right over.
What's up, Inspector?
Plenty. That was Gregory Laurie, the art dealer. He just called to say he killed his brother.
Oh, hello, Inspector. I'm glad you've come. Something dreadful has happened.
So I gathered over the phone. Where's the body?
Body? Oh, you mean Alec? In the library on the floor.
Which way is the library?
That door to the right. All this has unnerved me completely.
I can understand. Come on, Pepper. You too, Laurie.
Yeah, not a very pretty, Inspector.
Shot through the stomach.
Jeez, he looks awful. His face is all twisted.
Twisted as it is, Mr. Laurie, there's quite a resemblance.
Well, we were twins.
Oh.
He turned up unexpectedly this evening, and well, you see, Peter was always the black sheep of the family, but he was my brother, and I killed him.
Please finish your story.
Oh, yes, of course. Well, as you know, I'm rather well known as an art dealer, collect famous paintings and all that, and sell them at a price.
Go on.
Well, Alec and I severed relations several years ago, long before he was sent to prison. We were very different. I was always aesthetic, loved beautiful things in life. I was happiest surrounded by my paintings or listening to good music.
Ain't it the truth, Mr. Laurie? It's the little things that count.
Shut up, Pepper. Go on.
Well, Alec, on the other hand, was more materialistic. He was only interested in acquiring money.
And he turned up here tonight?
Yes, he had come for the painting.
What painting?
That Botticelli there by the window.
Oh.
It's a rare original. You can see by the signature on it. I came by it through very good fortune. It's worth millions, of course. Alec wanted it. I refused. He drew an automatic.
Huh?
Hold the gun, stupid.
Oh!
In the struggle that followed, he was shot.
Ah, see. Well, then it was really self-defense. Mr. Laurie, if you're telling the truth, you haven't much to worry about.
That's just it, boss. This guy's not telling the truth.
What?
He's a phony, Inspector. This ain't Gregory Laurie, the art dealer. Begging your pardon, Inspector, but any dope could tell that.
What mistake did Laurie make that proved he was not telling the truth? Did you find the loophole in his story? In a moment you'll know, but first...
Okay, I must be a dope because I don't get it.
Why am I not surprised?
Okay, don't you tell me that you have the answer to this one. There's nothing to go on.
But there is. You dunderhead. Anyone with a background in art knows that.
Okay, I'll bite. What did, in my utter stupidness, I miss?
Sandro Botticelli was a wonderful painter. But he was a humble man and never signed his work.
Wonderful. But I fail to understand...
Yes, you do.
And now, back to our mystery.
Are you sure, Pepper?
Certainly. The minute he talks about that genuine Botticelli, with the signature and everything, I had the guy pegged for a phony. Botticelli never signed none of his paintings. Any real art dealer knows that.
But, Pepper, how did you know that?
Me? Ah, it was nothing. I took a night course in art appreciation at City College. My wife thinks I ain't got enough culture. Boy, wait till I tell her this.
Criminal stopped, but still, that was a pretty obscure clue.
And that is why I am not surprised at your failure.
Enlighten me.
Well, to put it quite simply, you are about as sharp as a marble.
Again, that makes no sense. Marbles are round.
Have you ever thought about therapy?
Of course not.
You just might want to give it a try.
What's that you said?
Hello, and welcome to the podcast. We have another full show for you this week with more amazing stories. We have an extended These Are Your Stories, and then our featured event is from the Screen Directors Playhouse with a creepy tale called Night Has 1,000 Eyes. And I think you're going to love it. So let's get the ball rolling with this from Audible. Today's podcast is brought to you by Audible. Get a free audiobook and a 30-day free trial at audibletrial.com/Ron's Amazing Stories. They have over 180,000 titles to choose from for your iPhone, Android, computer, Kindle. Whatever you have, you can listen to Audible on it. So what am I listening to right now? Firefly. Big Damn Hero, Firefly, Book 1. Written by James Lovegrove and narrated by James Anderson Foster. Do you remember the science fiction series on Fox? Firefly was a Western drama created by writer and director Joss Whedon. The series is set in the year 2517 after the arrival of humans in a new star system. It follows the adventures of the renegade crew of Serenity, which is a Firefly-class spaceship. The series lasted but one season, but what a fantastic season it was. The problem was that Fox mishandled it and placed it on Friday nights. It never took off in the ratings. But that didn't matter to the fans of the show, and Whedon quickly made a movie version that did quite well at the box office. Years later, fans are still screaming for a return, and it looks like it might be back. Someday. Until then, we have a series of novels, 4 so far, that have been made of the critically acclaimed and much missed Firefly. Big Damn Hero is the first, and here is a clip from the opening of the book.
So here's how it is. We've been flying for about a month on fumes and tears. Zoe and I are the ones hit hardest. We carried the coffin of Tracy Smith, our comrade in arms, out of Serenity and into the snowfall, where his folks stood in silence. We did not tell them that Tracy had run afoul of a gang of organ smugglers and taken refuge with us, or that he had lied to us and nearly killed Kaylee, and that Zoe and I had both shot him mortally. As he died in our arms, he remembered when we were soldiers. We had fought on the right side, even if it was the losing one, and risked our lives to make sure everyone came back. Now he's dead, and we told his folks that he was a war hero. War does a lot of mean, miserable things to people. Makes them nurse grudges, makes them swear vengeance, makes them tell stories about how the browncoats went down in defeat. And a lot gets lost in the translation. The Unification War ended in 2511. It's 2517 now, and my memories come in waves. Sometimes I'm back home on Shadow, signing up to join the Browncoats with my best friends Jamie Adair and Toby Finn. We were so young, just kids, We thought war meant freedom and glory. And sometimes I still dream about Jamie's sister, Ginny, and when I wake up, my heart is as hollow as a drum. That's all in the past, and I've got way more than enough present to deal with. Inara gets these faraway looks. Don't know what it means, but I know not to ask. Still got the Tams on board, and Jane hasn't tried to sell them out since we got those medical supplies on Osiris, so that's a plus. Shepard's still reading his book of fairy tales. Zoe's still my first officer, and I wouldn't have any other. Kaylee keeps us running, and Wash keeps us flying. Is it a good life or a bad one? The answer doesn't matter. It's the only life we have. Captain Malcolm Reynolds.
While picking up cargo on Perse phone, Captain Malcolm Reynolds is kidnapped by a bunch of embittered veteran browncoats who suspect him of sabotaging the Independence during the war. As the rest of the crew struggle to locate him, Mal is placed on trial for his life, fighting compelling evidence that someone did indeed betray them to the Alliance during the Battle of Serenity Valley. As old comrades and old rivals crawl out of the woodwork, Mal must prove his innocence, but his captors are desperate and will settle for nothing less than the culprit's blood. Now, you can have Big Damn Hero Firefly Book 1 today. Here is what Audible has set up for us. They are offering a free audiobook and 30 days to give you the opportunity to check out their service. This includes free access to the Audible Plus catalog, which is updated monthly with new titles. To download your free audiobook, go to audibletrial.com/Ron's Amazing Stories. Again, that's audibletrial.com/Ron's Amazing Stories, and you too can head back to the world of Firefly and the crew of Serenity today. Thank you, Audible. And now, it's time for your stories.
These are your stories, sent by you, for you.
Our first story comes from the great city of Los Angeles, California, and was sent in by Belinda Sparks. Hello, Ron. I know how much you love a good head-scratcher, and I have one for you. My boyfriend Mateo and I had a real experience one night while we were staying at the Hollywood Roosevelt. It's one of the more famous places in the city, and it had always been a dream of mine to stay there. My guy gave me one night for my birthday. We stayed in one of their cabana suites close to the famous Marilyn Monroe suite. We had a wonderful evening and could not believe just how luxurious everything was. I knew that it had to be expensive, but I didn't care. It was something that I will never forget. Eventually, we got tired and decided to call it a night. I was sleeping in the amazing bed, and my boyfriend was on the couch. I was awoken by the sound of a trumpet. It was very strange, so I called out to Mateo and asked if he'd heard it. But he was dead to the world. I got up and walked around the room. Nothing. The Bose stereo was turned off, and the huge TV was silent. I shook Mateo awake and told him what had happened. He said it was probably just a guest and not to worry about it. I went back to bed and was just about asleep when I heard it again. This time Mateo was awake and he heard it too. We searched around the room, outside hall, and the cabana balcony and could not find the source. We were about to give up when it played one last time. This time it had a sad jazz sound to it. I called down to the main desk to ask about it. They said it probably just came up from the jazz club down the street. We doubted that because we were pretty high up from street level. Some might have been scared by what we heard, but to me, that just made the whole experience that much more enjoyable. Belinda Sparks, Los Angeles, California. What a great story, but would you like to hear the rest of the story? I did some research on the Hollywood Roosevelt. Not only was it the home to Marilyn Monroe, where legend has it her ghost still haunts her old stomping grounds. There's a famous mirror in the lobby where people take pictures and claim that they can see Marilyn's reflection. But that's not all. On the 9th floor, you can hear late actor Montgomery Clift, who lived in Suite 928 for 3 months while filming From Here to Eternity, practicing on his trumpet. Guests have asked the hotel staff to tell the person in the next room to stop playing in the middle of the night. However, the room was actually vacant at the time. Creepy? Yeah, I would say that is. Thank you for your story, Belinda. This story was sent in to the show several months back. It was sent without any contact information other than a reference to Texas. I have no idea where it came from. I ran it through my plagiarism checker and found that it had been posted no less than 7 times on the internet with a 72% accuracy rate. One time with a different dog name, another time from a person named Adrian, and yet another during Christmas. My guess is that this story is a complete work of fiction, or perhaps folklore. Hey, maybe it's even true. The story was written poorly, so I revised it, and I read it to you now. I do not offer any proof that it is real, but it is a pretty good story, and it goes like this. Let me preface this by saying I'm no means a writer, just a domestic engineer living in North Texas. Also, I don't believe in the paranormal, ghosts, demons, aliens, whatever. However, I did have an event that happened to me on Halloween that I have to admit has me scratching my head. It had been a slow trick-or-treat night in our neighborhood that evening, which is pretty odd in itself. We usually have kids from different areas drop off in ours and have a constant parade at our door. On this night, I'd say we'd had no more than 8 to 10 groups come by the entire evening. It was about 9:30 p.m., and my husband and I were sitting in our family room watching one of those ghost shows based on supposedly actual events. Like I said, I don't believe in that stuff, but I do like a good ghost story now and again, and it was Halloween after all. We hadn't had any activity at our door for over half an hour, and it was getting pretty late, so we decided to turn the porch light off and let our dog Chloe out of her crate. Chloe is an American bulldog and is very docile. We only put her in her crate because we were afraid she'd try to get out to play with all the kids, and I didn't want to have to chase her down the street. Also, we didn't want her to scare any of the little kids because she can look pretty intimidating if she wanted to. I turned the outside light off, let Chloe out, and she followed me back to the couch. Then she stopped for a minute, sniffed the air, deciding that all was well. She laid down at my feet. It was getting close to 10 p.m. when my husband decided he'd had enough fun for the night and was going to go upstairs, take a shower, and get ready for bed. After all, it was a Thursday, and he still had to get up early the next day. Our teenage son was out with his friends at a local haunted house and wasn't expected back for another hour or so. So that left me alone on the couch with Chloe. Now, just because I don't believe doesn't mean these shows don't freak me out just a bit. And being alone now watching, I'd have to say I was kind of on edge, as it were. It wasn't long after I heard the upstairs water for the shower turn on, and there came a light knock at the front door. My initial reaction was, "What the heck? Really? It's almost 10 p.m. Go home." But then An uneasy feeling came over me. Why the knock? Our doorbell glows in the dark, and without the porch light, it would be extra obvious to anyone there. I paused, but I really couldn't just ignore it. Our front door has a big beveled glass panel, and anyone right at the door would see someone was in the family room watching TV. It would be pretty rude of me to just sit there and not answer it. Again from the front door, I glanced down at Chloe, and she was gone. My gaze followed her normal path that she would take to the door, expecting her to be on her way as she normally does. She wasn't there. I stood up to look around the room and found her crouching at the kitchen entrance like she was wanting out. However, she never asks to go out like that. She always comes, licks my hand, or puts her head on my knee. This was totally out of character for her, and I have to say it heightened my anxiety. "Chloe," I said, "crate." She turned to look at me like, "Heck no, lady, I ain't moving." I yelled up to my husband, but he was already in the shower, so I knew that there was no chance of him hearing me. About that time, a car drove down our street and cast enough light on the door to where I could see the silhouettes of two small children through the glass. I instantly felt relieved. It was just some kids, probably a couple of my neighbors on their way back home that wanted to stop by to show me their costume or something. I headed to the door and looked back to make sure Chloe wasn't going to follow. I need not have worried. What a great watchdog, I thought to myself, as she just sat there. I turned on the porch light and got to the door, and sure enough, I could see through the glass that it was just a couple of pretty small kids. A little late for such young ones, I thought, and began to wonder about what kind of parents would let their kids run the streets that late at night. I only opened the door enough to where I could block Chloe's escape if she decided to charge. What struck me immediately was how odd was it that the kids weren't wearing any costumes. They were in normal street clothes. No customary trick-or-treat either. I began to feel very uneasy again. It was a girl and a boy. The girl to my left was older, I'd say 11 or 12. I could see that she was blonde, but I couldn't make out any distinct features. Our lights are from high above and on columns at the front of the porch, so most of the light was coming from behind them. I had not opened the door wide enough for any of the light from inside to hit them directly. The boy was younger and about a foot shorter. I'd say he was 8 or 9 and looked like he had light brown hair. The girl very politely spoke up.
"Ma'am, can we please come inside and use your phone to call our mom?"
As she spoke, I had a feeling in the pit of my stomach that was telling me something was wrong. What kid, even at that age, doesn't have a cell phone on them these days? I couldn't remember the last time anyone had asked to use my home phone. Hun, don't you have a phone of your own that you can call your mom on?" I asked. This is when things got real weird. Both kids turned to look at each other like they were going to say something to one another, but neither of them spoke. They both looked back at me, and the girl said,
"Ma'am, my cell phone battery doesn't have any charge left in it. Can we please come inside and call our mother? We're alone, and my brother is so scared."
I have to admit there were two competing feelings inside of me. The first was that of a mother's heart, and I wanted to help these two children get to their mom. The other, a sinking fear in my gut that was keeping my feelings at bay. It was then that I noticed, during the short conversation, that I had already opened the door a few extra inches, of which I was completely unaware of doing. I stopped. "Honey, why don't you give me your mother's number and I can call her myself?" Another pause, and they looked at each other again. After a short moment, they turned back to me, and the girl said,
"Ma'am, my little brother has to use your bathroom. Can we please come in while you call our mom?"
And with that last statement, the little girl moved closer to the door like she was just going to walk on right by me. As she did, she stepped into the light coming from inside of the house, and I got my first real good look at her. Solid, jet black eyes. And that's all I could see. The motherly instinct was gone and replaced by terror that I don't think I've ever felt in my life. I could feel every hair on my arms and the back of my neck standing at attention. I closed the door to where just my face was able to stick out. The little girl stopped and again pleaded,
"Please, ma'am, we're really scared alone out here, and we have to come inside. Please help us."
Then, like on cue, both kids began to cry and whimper. It was then that the fear took over me, and I shut and locked the door. "I'll call your mom if you give me the number," I shouted through the door. "But I'm not letting you into my house." I could see them stand there on the porch, just looking through the beveled glass at me. Part of me wanted to run upstairs to my husband, but the bigger part didn't want to lose track of where they were. That would have freaked me out even more to not know where they were. After what seemed like forever, but was probably just a few seconds, I decided to call my neighbor that lives across the street. I made my way to the couch to grab my phone, and I glanced back at the door, and I saw a shadow figure standing there. It looked like dark smoke, and then quickly faded. When I got to my phone, I started to look for my neighbor's contact information. I glanced up again and watched as the kids stepped away from the porch and walked towards the street. I went to the door to get a better look at where they went. I could see that the kids were still standing there under the street lamp near my house, and they were staring at me. I dialed my neighbor and lifted the phone to my ear. Only then did the kids start walking down our street. I met my neighbor under the lamp, but the kids were nowhere to be found. I went back inside, and I couldn't find Chloe anywhere. My husband came downstairs and could tell something was wrong. I quickly told him what had happened. We searched around together and finally found the dog under our bed, whimpering. Like I said, I don't believe in any of this stuff, and I've never heard of black-eyed kids before this. What I really think, what I have to think, is that these kids were just out yanking people's chains on Halloween night. But I will say this for them. They were good. Really good. They scared the crap out of me and my dog. Posted to the website anonymously. Well, that story, and as crazy as it sounds, feels pretty real to me. What did you think? I debated whether to share this one for a long time. Since it has been posted so many times across the internet, I'm not worried about copyright issues. The most recent post was in December of 2018, and it had a decidedly Christmas feel to it. I chose to go with the Halloween version. Is any of this story true? You know, I have always said that there's always a little truth in every story. If you are the author of this story and want to tell us what really happened, feel free to write me at ronsamazingstories@gmail.com. We want to know you and hear the rest of the story. Our last story comes from Jessica Edwards, who writes to us from New York. Hello, Ron. Thank you for your podcast. I love it. I heard you ask for stories, any stories, so here is mine. It isn't scary, a head-scratcher, or even very long, but it is true. I call it drama in the drama class. One time my drama class teacher had gone home sick, so we were put into a classroom with a movie to entertain us for the period. During the movie, an alarm went off. None of us were sure if it was the fire alarm or the lockdown alarm. So we headed out into the hall to check, and there was no one out there, so we headed back in and climbed under our desk as per lockdown procedure. Cut to an hour or so later when a teacher burst in and nearly dies of relief. You see, the school was actually on fire, and we were the only students not accounted for, and half the faculty and fire department had been searching for us for ages. Literally, the whole school had filled with smoke while we kept super safe under our wooden desks. Jessica Edwards, New York. Well, Jessica, I'm very glad that you were safe and sound. Perhaps your school should think about making changes to the alarms to make sure everyone can tell the difference. Thank you for your amazing story. Our featured story is a creepy tale about a phony stage mentalist who mysteriously acquires supernatural powers of precognition. Night Has 1,000 Eyes is a 1948 horror film directed by John Farrow and starring Edward G. Robinson. The screenplay was written by Barré Lyndon and is based on the novel of the same name by Cornell Woolrich. The production you are about to hear is an adaptation of that story on Screen Directors Playhouse. It first aired on February 27, 1949.
From Hollywood, the NBC Theater presents
Screen Directors Guild assignment. Production Night Has 1,000 Eyes. Director John Farrow. Star Edward G. Robinson.
The NBC Theater presents the Screen Directors Guild production of A Chronicle of Fear. Paramount's Night Has 1,000 Eyes, with its original team of screen director John Farrow, screen star Edward G. Robinson, and William Demarest. Although technical and artistic skills are the everyday instruments of the motion picture director, the very heart of his craft is fashioned from another sort of knowledge, the knowledge of the world in which he lives, and that can be gained only by living a life rich in experience. Such is the background of tonight's guest on the NBC Theater. A native Australian, he has been a seaman, soldier of fortune, adventurer at large, and has made an enduring mark as a scholarly writer of fiction and nonfiction. Here, then, is the director of many famous Paramount films, such as Wake Island, 2 Years Before the Mast, The Big Clock, the soon-to-be-released Alias Nick Beale, and tonight's story, Night Has 1,000 Eyes. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. John Farrow.
Night Has 1,000 Eyes is a story of the supernatural, but it is not a flight of fancy. Counterparts of the strange phenomena in tonight's story have been the subject of recent scientific study by some of our universities. Thus, through the medium of film, and now through the radio, we attempt to reveal a bizarre and a rather terrifying aspect of the strange world in which we live. Now, for the first time on the air, here is Night Has 1,000 Eyes, starring Edward G. Robinson as John Triton, with William Demarest as Lieutenant Sean.
In the drawing room of a fine suburban home, a young man named Carson reads a strange manuscript while the company listens gravely and silently.
My dear Carson, as you read this manuscript, I will be dead. No one is to blame. My death was as certain as all the other strange events I foresaw. Some of you who have seen me die will doubt this story and dismiss it as a series of contrived events and coincidences.
But you, Carson, and some of the others will know that there are things on Earth still hidden from us, still secret and unfathomable. I suppose most men can look back and see the exact point where destiny touched them. My destiny came upon me on the night of August 3rd, 1929. I was billed as Triton, the mental wizard. Like most mind-reading acts, it was a phony, but a first-class phony. Jenny, my lovely fiancée, had collected all the questions from the audience, and my good friend Whitney Cortland was ready for his part at the piano. Now, ladies and gentlemen, from where I stand, I shall endeavor to read the questions which you have written and which are now unopened, mind you, in that glass bowl. Now, if I may have a little quiet music, Mr. Cortland. Let me see. I sense a name. A lady's name. Bayer. That's it, Byers. Clara Byers. Miss Byers asked a question. She wishes to know... Something's wrong. There are disruptive impulses coming from the audience. A woman in a white dress, a little boy. Madam, you there in the third row. Your little boy is in great danger. You must go home at once. At once! Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, we'll continue where we left off. If I may have some quiet music, Mr. Cortland. The incident disturbed me. But then I forgot about it entirely until late that night when the telephone rang in my room. It was the woman calling to tell me that she had come home to find the boy's room in flames. She had arrived just in time to save the child's life. And I was worried, deeply worried, although not yet frightened. There were other incidents, one of them brought on by Courtney's usual concern about our economic situation.
Well, kids, it's the same old story. Broke again. We could stand a little ready cash. Matter of fact, I'm going to put our last 10 spot on ready cash in the 5th at Green Meadows.
Ready cash? No, not ready cash. He'll fall and have to be destroyed. Peer Gynt by 2 lengths. Ready cash fell and had to be destroyed. Peer Gynt won by 2 lengths. It occurred to me that we might make fortunes this way. I didn't want to. It scared me. I began having a crazy feeling that by telling them, I was making the things come true. I began to wonder, would anything have happened if I'd kept quiet? And then one dismal, rainy day, I had my chance to find out. I was coming out of the theater. A little boy recognized me and asked me for an autograph. And then he turned to skip away. Wait, son! I'd had a vision of a car skidding on the slick pavement. A wild cry. And then I thought, no, perhaps if I keep it to myself, it won't happen. Nothing, son. Just run along now. Run along. He went. A moment later... It was no use. After the boy's death, I knew I could foresee these events, but I was powerless to prevent their coming true.
Look, Johnny, I just met a big oil man down in the lobby who wants us to come in on this Comanche Hills oil field.
Well, so what?
Well, do you suppose you could get a hunch on a sporting proposition like that? Might make us a lot of money.
No, it's no good, Court. We're washed up on hunches.
Why, Johnny?
Well, because I'm scared, Jenny, plain scared.
I haven't had a very good feeling about it myself, Johnny.
Well, all right. We'd better get down to the theater then and earn it the hard way. Curtain in 20 minutes.
And now, ladies and gentlemen, if you will all please concentrate on the sealed questions you have addressed to me, please. A little quiet music, Mr. Cortland. I'm concentrating on a particular envelope. A young lady's handwriting. She, the young lady, I looked at Jenny, stared at Jenny, so beautiful, so fragile and desirable, and so much to me. I saw her and something else.
Johnny.
Bring down the curtain.
Johnny, what's the matter?
Bring down the curtain, I tell you. Bring down the curtain!
Are you sure you feel better now, Johnny?
Oh, sure, Jenny. I just felt a little dizzy out there.
You sure had us worried there for a while.
Oh, Court.
Yeah?
Had a sort of a minor hunch about that Comanche Hills oil proposition. Be one of the richest oil pools in the country. Make us all rich.
Wonderful, wonderful. Thank you, Johnny. Now let's go out and eat.
No, you and Jenny go ahead. I'll join you later. Maybe it was the wrong decision, but I went away. What I'd seen that night on the stage had been Jenny's death. If I stayed, we'd be married and there'd be a child. The child would live, but Jenny wouldn't. I had to go away to save Jenny's life and save my own sanity. I knew Cortland would take care of Jenny and Comanche Hills Oil would take care of both of them. Yes, but I knew I had to get away from people, especially the people I loved. I went away. It didn't work. A year later, I heard that Jenny had married Cortland. She died when her daughter Jean was born. I read about it in Variety. For 20 years, I lived almost a hermit's life and had no more visions. This gift or the curse seemed to wither it from this use. And then after 20 years, on the night of Jean's debut, I stood outside in the crowd and I watched her go inside the fine hotel, holding tight to Court's arm. Jenny's daughter was lovely, and I was proud. I watched them disappear inside, and then after 20 years of peace, it happened. For a moment, I saw the image of wreckage, the smoking wreckage of an airplane. And then it was gone. What did it mean this time? But nothing happened. And I forgot about it completely for 3 months. Until one day in my shop, I turned on a small radio I just repaired.
Now the 11:55 news brought by your Comanche oil reporter. New York. Flying his converted Army bomber, Whitney Cortland, multimillionaire president of Comanche Oil, took off from LaGuardia Airport early today in an attempt to smash the East-West transcontinental record. He and his pilot, former Army flyer Richard Sims...
No! I must warn Jean. Miss Cortland, I'm sorry to force my way in here, but I have an extremely important message for your father.
I'm sorry, but my father isn't here now.
See here, old man. I'm Miss Cortland's fiancé. Miss Cortland...
No, you've got to reach your father when he lands in Wichita to refuel.
But why?
You must halt the flight.
Halt the flight?
That's absurd.
Why should Father give up his
flight?
But
if he doesn't, this plane will crash.
How do you know that?
Oh, Miss Cortland, please. You're wasting priceless time.
All right, I'll call. But I'll ask you a lot of questions afterwards. I want to talk to Wichita, Kansas Airport. I haven't the number.
You make a practice of predicting plane crashes?
Oh, no.
I'll wait, thank you.
Maybe just the planes of very rich men.
Please.
Perhaps you're betting that he doesn't beat the record.
Hello? Hello, this is Whitney Cortland's daughter. When my father lands, have him call me immediately, will you? What? Oh, no. Oh, no!
The radio had it a few minutes later. In an hour, the extras were on the street. The Comanche Angel had crashed in Kansas. Both men were dead.
You've been very kind helping me over these past few days, Mr. Triton. I'm so grateful.
And your father was my best friend.
But if you'd only warned us sooner, if you'd only known sooner.
I don't think it would have made any difference.
Mr. Triton, what's wrong?
You have a new maid.
Why, yes, why?
You have an emerald bracelet.
Yes.
Get rid of the maid before the bracelet. Before...
What? Please, tell me.
Jean, it doesn't matter now.
Why doesn't it matter? You mean, not to me? You mean I won't need the bracelet? You mean I'm going to die too? Tell me.
Yes.
When?
Soon?
When?
Before the end of the week. At night. Under the stars. Jean.
The NBC Theater is presenting the Screen Directors Guild production of Night Has 1,000 Eyes, starring Edward G. Robinson with William Demarest, and introducing the director of the film, John Farrow.
You remember, Carson, you went to the police. They told you, yes, there had been a John Triton mental wizard who pretended to be able to predict things back in the 20s. They sent a certain Detective Lieutenant Shawn to investigate me where I was staying in Jean's house. My first interview with Shawn in my little room under the eaves, far from reassure the good lieutenant, for even as I answered his bitter questions, the veil lifted again. And I saw.
Hey, Triton, come out of it. Hey.
I see a flower.
Drop it, Triton. Cut.
A flower, crushed and broken. I hear a sudden wind shaking the windows. I hear a voice saying, "There's no danger now." And I see her.
Who?
Jean, lying under the stars, and beside her, the paws and talons of a lion.
A lion?
Under the stars.
Did you find out what time this happens to Miss Cortland?
Tonight, as the clock strikes 11. Lieutenant Shawn was all for arresting me at once. The rest of you were tolerantly skeptical, which saved me for a while. Downstairs with Jean and you, Carson, were two gentlemen, a Mr. Gilman.
Mr. Gilman, president of Mid-Tide Oil.
Good evening, Mr. Triton.
And a Mr. Myers, attorney for Cortland's estate.
How do you do, Mr. Triton?
Together, we sat down, and for the next 2 hours, our lives were geared to the relentless machinery of the grandfather's clock that ticked away near the curtained archway.
Frankly, I think this is ridiculous. Sitting around like this when we should be looking for a packet of missing options.
I'm sure I'll find them, Mr. Myers.
They'll be worthless in 36 hours. Jean,
Are you sure you can't remember where your father put those options?
Please, Mr. Gilman, I'm much too upset.
Well, the mid-tide merger can't go through without them.
I suggest Gene be permitted to forget about big business while we all concentrate on
the clock, Mr. Carson. Shut up, Triton.
4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10.
One down.
And one more hour to go.
And so far, nothing has materialized in your weird chain of events. A crushed flower indeed, a lion, a sudden wind.
Anyone interested in the 10 o'clock news? Here. Personally, I'm interested in the 11 o'clock
Which
news.
was upset in a collision tonight at Wilshire and Sepulveda. The lion escaped when a trailer truck rammed the
Turn that off.
Lion?
Lock the doors. Lock the windows. Put out some lights.
I'll lock up and go through the whole house.
Thanks, Gilman.
Well, there's the lion. We haven't heard a wind, or seen a crushed flower, or heard anyone say...
Don't say it.
Sorry.
Hey, those carnations in that vase, get them out.
Carnations?
Get them out. I don't believe any of this, but I'm taking no chances.
I'll get them, Lieutenant.
Careful now. Stand back. Don't anybody move. Not a one crushed.
That was a close one.
Mr. Myers, there's something sticking out under your foot.
Something, huh?
Lord. A carnation. Crushed and broken.
That does it, Triton.
No, not quite. Nothing final can happen until 11 o'clock.
And it ain't going to happen because you're around. I'm taking you downtown until after 11.
All right, Lieutenant, but it won't do any good. I'll be back at 11.
Stand still, Triton. Relax.
Yes, but I tell you, Sean, if you let me return to Jean's house, there's a chance I can use this power of mine to save her.
You put on a good show, Triton. Only I ain't buying.
Now, listen. You've a man in the cell here. His name is Amos Block. I see him in the cell now, a suicide.
You don't say. Well, there's one I can check on. Hello. Quinn? Sean. How's Block doing? Uh-huh. Thanks. In his cell playing solitaire.
Well, nevertheless, I see him in it.
Now I'm going to leave you with the boys here and go back to Miss Cortland's. Be good, huh?
$15 too, Gene.
Yes.
Yeah, everything is under control. It's very copacetic.
Oh, dear.
Close that French window. Close it.
I'll close it, Lieutenant.
I thought Gilman took care of that.
Where is Gilman, by the way?
There. That does it all right.
Sudden wind.
Yeah. I'll get it. Yeah? Oh, yeah, Quinn? No. Amos Block hung himself in his cell, but he can't do that. That's suicide. Hey, look, I want Triton here before it strikes 11. I don't care how, but get him here. What time is it?
10:47.
Oh, Lord, you made the night too long.
Just one more minute to go, darling.
45 seconds.
Oh, Mr. Myers.
Well, folks, you can forget the lion. They just killed it over at Veteran Hospital.
Oh, thank goodness.
This is it. 11 o'clock.
Elliot.
Yeah?
Back to back with me. Miss Cortland, get between us. Don't anybody move. I'll shoot the man who does.
Five, 6, 9, 10, 11.
That's it, folks.
It's all over. Nothing's happened.
Oh, Elliot. Elliot, darling.
It's all history now, dear. Forget it.
Elliot. I'm going outside.
I'll go with you.
No. I want to get used to standing out under the stars again. Alone. And not being afraid. Thank you, dear. Thank you so much. All of you.
I'll say this for Triton. He sure called his shots except that voice saying, "There's no danger now."
You just said it.
Yeah, but it's too late now to mean anything. Ain't it?
Sean.
Come in, Professor, come in.
Where is she? Where's Miss Cortland?
Outside.
You let her go outside?
It's after 11.
No, it's not.
Look at the clock.
That clock is wrong.
It was right.
Well, then it's been tampered with. I've got to go to her.
Stop. Triton. Haul her out, shoot.
It's too late for that. After him. He mustn't get near Jean.
Eight, 9, 10, 11.
That's right. 11 o'clock, Miss Cortland.
Oh, Mr. Gilman.
Your troubles are over now. There's no danger now.
11 o'clock. And a voice saying, "There's no danger." He must have met you.
No, you don't.
No, please.
Gilman, let go of her. Let go of her, you fool.
There he is, Sean. Right. Get him.
Plugged him, but good.
Jean, are you all right?
Oh, Elliot.
It's all right, Jean. You're safe now. Triton's dead.
Triton? Dead? But it was Gilman who tried to kill me.
Gilman, he didn't want those options found. But I didn't think he'd resort to murder.
Oh, poor Mr. Gilman. He died to save me.
But are you all right?
My throat hurts. Elliot, look. Mr. Triton. He's resting against the foot of that marble lion.
Marble lion. Of course. And that, Carson, ends this dark diary. I foresaw everything, even my own death. And tonight at headquarters,
I finished this diary. I left it in my pocket for you to find. Only time and the expanding wisdom of mankind will confirm the story in years to come. For there are reaches of the mind still undreamed of. And there are many mysteries of time and space and spirit to be shown to us. The stars look down. The night has 1,000 eyes to search the soul of man and see if he's equal to his fathomless tomorrows. Where there are yet more things in heaven and earth than are dreamed of in our philosophy.
John, it's been great fun for Bill and me, slipping back into character. For our parts, Night Has 1,000 Eyes.
Well, I just hope Bill here doesn't start having one of his visions again.
What, you mean cool, solid Bill Demarest is in tune with the supernatural?
He thought he was.
No, wait a minute. I know what you're talking about. And I really did have a vision.
Yeah?
I was standing talking to Johnny on the set, and suddenly I knew one of the camera booms was swinging around behind us.
What happened?
He yelled, "Johnny, fall on your face."
Well, did you get hurt?
My nose was almost broken.
By the camera boom?
No, by falling on my face. There wasn't a camera within 50 yards.
Well, I had a vision.
Now, we don't have to be visionaries, John, to know that your direction inspired Bill and myself and everyone else connected with the picture.
You did a great job. Check, Eddie. That goes for me, too.
Thanks very much. But suddenly I seem to be getting a vision myself.
What do you see?
I see us being cut off the air if we don't say good night. Good night, everyone.
Good night, folks.
And good night to you, Edward G. Robinson, William Demarest, and John Farrow.
Pretty great story, I think. It was originally written by Cornell Woolrich, who is widely regarded as the 20th century's finest author of pure suspense fiction. He wrote several classic novels and short stories, many of which were turned into classic films, such as Rear Window, The Bride Wore Black, The Night Has 1,000 Eyes, Waltz into Darkness, and I Married the Dead Man. Woolrich began his career in the 1920s writing mainstream novels that won him comparisons to F. Scott Fitzgerald. The bulk of his best-known work, however, was written in the field of crime fiction, often appearing serialized in pulp magazines or as paperback novels. Woolrich lived a life as dark and emotionally tortured as any of his unfortunate characters. He died alone in a seedy Manhattan hotel room following the amputation of a gangrenous leg. Upon his death, Woolrich bequeathed his estate of about $850,000 to Columbia University. He did this in his mother's memory to provide scholarships for writing students. His papers are also kept in the archives at Columbia University. Most of Woolrich's books are out of print now, and new editions were slow to come out because of issues with his estate. However, 7 titles are available as ebooks in the public domain, including The Night Has 1,000 Eyes. How about that? That was episode number 586, and Belinda Sparks, the anonymous poster, and Jessica Edwards shared their stories with us today, and some amazingly good ones too. Thank you guys. If you want to follow the podcast or the blog, head to ronsamazingstories.com. There you will find any of the links I mentioned and how to contact us. Do you want to help the show? The best thing you can do is to tell your friends all about it, and please leave reviews or feedback wherever you listen. Clicking that follow or like button helps us grow. Thank you for listening, and I hope you come again to find out what are Ron's Amazing Stories.
All of the vintage audio used in the podcast is believed to be in the public domain. Ron's Amazing Stories does not own the rights to any of the old-time radio used here. If you hold the rights to any of the shows played, please contact us immediately at ronsamazingstories.com.